Have you ever hit that point in your business or in your career where you're making the money you thought you always wanted, but you don't have that same feeling of richness that you thought that it would bring? You don't have the same feeling of aliveness, of abundance, of freedom, of just a life of fulfillment that you thought that this money was actually going to lead to. Now, if you're in that spot, definitely not alone. I think tons of entrepreneurs, myself included, have hit different milestones in our career where we think it's going to unlock some certain level of enjoyment or life satisfaction. And ultimately, we just end up chasing the next horizon. So the question that I've been asking myself a lot lately is, what does a rich life actually look like? What does it mean to actually have wealth? What does it mean to really enjoy the life that you're building while you're building it and not just be chasing some future milestone? So in this video, I want to share the 4 keys that I've uncovered in my life to really build a life that truly feels rich in all meanings of the word. A life where I feel like I'm just living life on my terms, where I'm able to enjoy the experiences that I'm pursuing. I'm able to really enjoy the business I'm building, enjoy the freedom, enjoy the relationships, and to live a life which feels like it doesn't have as many trade-offs as I used to think that I was going to have. So my name's Eli Pacinda, aka Eli the Travel Guy, and on this channel I talk a lot about travel and points and experiences, but ultimately it's to answer one key question, and that question is, what is a life fully lived? What does it mean to get to the end of the game and to look back and think, yeah, I fully sent it. I went all into my dreams. I took risks. I built amazing relationships. I had rich experiences. I gave in a way that felt impactful and meaningful. And you get to the end of your life thinking, man, I left it all on the field. That's ultimately what I'm after, and that's what this video is going to be about. So the first key that I found to actually having the richest life possible has absolutely nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with being rich in relationships. Now, this is something that we all talk about and we all kind of know, but when it comes down to your actual schedule and your day and your calendar, how much time are you prioritizing to the most meaningful relationships in your life versus letting other obligations, responsibilities, and things that don't actually give you energy and give you that sense of aliveness just take up space in your calendar? But here's the good news that I found. In order to create rich relationships, it's not always just about the quantity of time. It's really about the depth and the texture and the purpose behind those relationships. You know, every year I actually spend a week playing baseball with my dad in Florida. Now, right now I'm actually out in Colorado. My fiance Brynn and I moved out here to go experience the mountains for a bit. We were in Austin before, and then we spent the year traveling the world. We decided, why not try the mountains? But every year, regardless of where I am, I take 1 week in January and I go play baseball with my dad in Florida. Now, this is like his Super Bowl. He loves it. It's a ton of fun, honestly. It's a great time. But I do it because it adds so much depth to our relationships, such a unique flavor of connection. And yes, going to visit home and sitting on the couch and watching sports together, or going out for a beer and stuff, like those are great moments too. I don't want to take away from those, but 1 week of doing something together, of experiencing something that really bonds us, that creates laughs and memories, you're on the same team competing together, like it brings us closer together than the equivalent of maybe 6 or 8 weeks of just doing other random things. So that's a beautiful thing, because as an entrepreneur, if you are fully dedicated to a mission, oftentimes it can feel hard to prioritize these relationships. And that's why I really believe in carving out specific times, and really that's why I like to use travel and experiences like that to create the depth that I want to create, because it allows you to bond in a way that you normally don't get if you're kind of just spending time the traditional sense, just going out to meals and watching TV. So that's number one, is going to be, if you have key people in your life, you can do what I call the rich relationship blueprint. And this is where you actually map out, who are these key people and what are the intersection points of interest between you and them? For example, with my dad, there's an overlap of baseball. I played baseball in high school and college. So for us, that's always a great connection point, whether we're going to go watch a pro game or go play together. Like, that's one through line that we have. With my mom, she's clearly not into that, but she's more into like the cultural side of things. So we might travel to a new city, go do the tour, go try out different food. And she's really into more stuff like kayaking and yoga. So we always do a lot of paddleboarding when we're together. So there's these different kind of textures and shared inflection points that when you combine them together, you're able to get a deeper, richer relationship, because you're sharing something together, which brings you closer together. And ultimately, this idea of having rich relationships, it's so apparent for everyone at the end of their life. You look at all the studies, you read a book like The 5 Regrets of the Dying. No one at the end of their life is saying, like, I wish I worked harder, I wish I made more, I wish I'd achieved more. Everyone's saying, man, I wish I'd spent more time with people I loved. Man, I wish before my dad passed, my mom passed, I had spent that week going to have that trip with them that I was putting off because I was prioritizing work. You might say, I wish I could go back to when I was in my 20s and do the things with my best friends that I can't do anymore because now we all have, kids and families, and it's just like life is different. Those are the things that we all say we miss. It's not the money, it's not the other things that people are typically caught pursuing. So the second key to living a fully rich life on your terms is going to be to create what I call a life force business. Now, in the world of business, right, there's different styles of businesses. There's mission-driven businesses, there's businesses that are built to sell, and there's businesses that are traditionally called lifestyle businesses. But personally, I actually hate that word because it feels very self-serving and like it's just about you and like your fancy car or whatever your lifestyle is going to be. And while I do like having a great lifestyle, I just think that idea and that connotation, it just never really fit what I felt like I was after. And when I got down to it, I was like, oh, what I'm building is a life force business. I want a business that fuels me with energy because I'm on my purpose. I'm connected to the thing that I feel gives me the most joy and the most aliveness. It's my greatest act of service to the world, my greatest contribution. It's what I'm here to do. It's my purpose. It's my gift. And when I connect to that, I come alive. Like I feel fired up and I feel like I have energy, and it's a very renewable source of energy. You know, what I found is when I've tried to do businesses or projects where I don't have that sense of connection, it's so much harder. You don't have the same, I have to talk myself into it. I have to motivate myself and pump myself up. And sure, there's, challenging moments in any business, even if you love it. But the more I connect to this idea of what is a business that fuels me, what mission do I want to stand behind? What's a message that I want out into the world? Every day I get to wake up and do what I get to do. I love it. I feel like I have meaning, I have depth, I have a richness and a texture to my life that is different from relationships in terms of connecting with family and loved ones and friends, but just as rich in terms of how it makes me feel. And I'm taking a group of 50 entrepreneurs to Europe next week, and we're going to be going to Austria to ski. And before that, we're actually stopping in Munich. And one of the things we're going to be doing is visiting Dachau concentration camp. And before we go to do that, we're actually reading the book Man's Search for Meaning to really bond us and unify us and have this shared context so we can go into that experience and extract the most out of it for our lives. And as I've been reading this book, it's in the title and maybe you've read it, but the whole idea is that what we're deeply craving in life isn't status and fame and all these other things. It's a really rich sense of meaning in our life. And that can come from a lot of different things. I'm certainly not a guru in that, so I'm only sharing what has worked for me. But the more that I feel connected to my aliveness, what really turns me on in my business, the more meaning I feel like I have, because it feels like it's uniquely me. It feels like it's my business, my brand, my message. It's coming from my essence. And whenever I put that out into the world, there's just such a depth of connection that I feel to what I'm doing that it just feels incredible. Now, the two practical frameworks that I use to really identify a life force business, there's number one is going to be your ikigai. And this is being in alignment with, it's a Japanese philosophy, but being in alignment with what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can get paid for. If you draw those four Venn diagrams, that inner point, that's your ikigai, that's your purpose. And the more you connect to that, I think the more juice you get, the more energy you get, and the more things kind of just unfold as well. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, which I think a lot of people miss, is the zone of genius. And this is where you look at your business and you look at the things that give you energy versus the things that take energy. And you slowly relinquish the things off that are taking energy. So you can do an energy audit on this. You can look at all the things you're spending your time on and rate them from -3 to +3. I got this from my good friend Eric Strauss, who was the former COO at Mind Valley, and he taught me this. And I said, Eric, why do you do a -3? And he said, well, because if it doesn't fill you up, if it doesn't light you up, it's actually taking energy, and that's an unsustainable strategy. So you need to know, you can't just call it a 0. It's actually a negative in your life. Oh, wow, it's really interesting. So you can go through and look at the things that are, the -3s, obviously those are definitely going to go, but the -1s, the 0s and the 1s, those are the ones that are going to trip you up. And those are oftentimes things they're typically more in your zone of excellence. And Gay Hendricks talks about this concept in the book, The Big Leap. But the zone of excellence is essentially the area of your skill sets where you get paid because you're good at it, but it's not the thing that sets your soul on fire. It's not the thing that you were born to do. It's not your natural innate gift, the thing that you were effortlessly doing since you were a child. So for me, I love communicating and bringing people together and, creating just a buzz and a vibe. And I've always been doing that since I was a kid. I remember when I was in kindergarten at our elementary school, we had this thing called Pizza Bingo Night. Funny little thing that happened once a year. And I can remember being, 5 or 6 years old on the bus, going to everyone and saying, hey, you coming to Pizza Bingo Night? It's going to be such a good time. You should come. He's coming. She's coming. We're going to have a great time. I was like recruiting people to this event, building energy around this experience and getting people hyped up to share this like awesome peak event. And so for me, doing that has always been a big theme of my zone of genius, as well as just like casting a vision and getting people excited about it, basically rallying the troops. And so for me, that's a that's an area of the business that I will never delegate. Even things like this, where it's kind of like, sharing energy through YouTube or through social media. I always feel like that's really connected to something that's very energizing for me. So when I combine that sense of zone of genius energy with my purpose and my ikigai, I just feel completely in flow and aligned. And that's not to say there aren't hard moments or moments where I forget that entirely. Of course there are, but I'm always orienting back towards that. That's my North Star and my orienting principle. By the way, so Britt and I decided to move out here to Boulder. As you can see, it's beautiful. This is February out here and it's gorgeous, but we're at 7,000 feet of elevation, so I am slightly out of breath as I make this video. So with that, we're gonna talk about the third key to a life very well lived, and that's gonna be to create freedom. Now, this is one that is obviously talked about tons, and the question really is are you free in the three currencies that matter? And there's really even a fourth currency if you were to look at it, but the three that Tim Ferriss kind of named in the 4-Hour Work Week, which I really like, are just location freedom, time freedom, and then financial freedom. And in today's world, location freedom is definitely the easiest. Time freedom is probably the hardest because most people are chasing financial freedom and then time becomes the trade-off. So the idea here that I've tried to follow is, what is the thing that is most profitable per hour of input? So if I look at that and I say, okay, what is the thing that if I spend the most energy and time on this will generate the most profit, not revenue, profit in terms of return? Because that has been the one thing that both factors in the constraint of time and money into one thing. And when you have that, it's a good question to ask because it helps us focus on what actually matters most. And usually those are things that are typically in alignment with my zone of genius, the things that light me up. And when I have that overlap, that is when the business flows the best and has grown the most in the past. So overall, this is something that if you can nail the freedom game, obviously it's going to open up a lot of opportunities. But if you don't have these other buckets full, then just having a free life. I know a lot of people, I have several friends who are like this. They have a free life, but they don't have rich relationships and they don't have a business that sets them on fire. So they're free and they're having experiences, but they're kind of hollow, right? They're kind of empty. And so, this is why I put this third, because if you don't have that sense of fulfillment coming from a depth of connection and a business that sets you on fire, then the freedom I just don't think will feel as worth it. Now, some people will argue, well, once you achieve the freedom, then you can go do the thing. But here's the thing I've seen with most people that are on that path is the goalpost just keeps moving. They don't actually stop to enjoy it. They don't actually go create the relationships. They don't actually go find the thing that lights them up. They just say, oh, well, I'll just make a little bit more. I'll buy the next car, the next house, the next watch, the next trip, whatever it is. And so they're kind of on a ever-moving hamster wheel. And so for me, the freedom piece is not just so that you can have choice in your life. It's so that you can fill your life with what really energizes you, with what gives you that sense of purpose and fulfillment, which are the relationships and your purpose. So out of those three freedoms, usually people that are earlier in the career, they have potentially location freedom, but they're struggling with financial freedom. And then usually a lot of people have gotten financial freedom, then struggle with getting time freedom because they're the bottleneck, they're the constraint in the business, or they're the expert that can't seem to remove themselves. And so figuring out that loophole, leveraging systems, leveraging AI, leveraging virtual assistants, leveraging team, leveraging just smarter strategies are all the key pieces there. But it also gives you that last freedom, which is really that freedom of purpose, which means you get to decide where you are going to spend your time. So if I had to personally pick an order, I would start with location freedom first because it's the easiest and simplest, which basically means you're going to build a business that's either online or some sort of opportunity that you can be removed from or at least have flexibility with. The second freedom I would actually start with next is going to be time freedom, because I think time should be a higher constraint than money. Because if you think, how do I make the most money with the least amount of time, it's going to mean that you're focused on the highest leverage activities. But if you think first, how do I make the most money with an infinite amount of time, there's going to be so many options and ways to do that, it's going to be overwhelming and confusing. So let me give you an example. If you were to say, hey, I want to make $100,000 next month, right? And you want to do it working as much as you can. There's a lot of ways to do it. But if you just start to say, I want to make $100,000 next month, and I only want to work 1 hour a day, and I don't want to take any calls, all of a sudden the options and the opportunities to get there get very narrow, right? This is the theory of constraints. This is constraints thinking, which allows you to really lock in your focus. So I'm actually a big fan of starting with time first and then figuring out the money game. And when you do that, that also allows that fourth freedom, which is really the freedom of purpose, to choose what you want to do, to choose what you want to work on, and really align with that zone of genius or that life force business that I'm talking about. So if you've nailed your rich relationships, you have meaningful connections with the people in your life, you've got a really amazing business that lights you on fire, and you're building freedom. What is the fourth thing? Well, this is my favorite part. This is the part that makes it all worth it. This is the part where if you read and implemented the 4-Hour Work Week or some of these other books, if you don't have this last piece, it's just gonna miss a little bit of that pizzazz, a little bit of that juice, and that is your peak travel and life experiences. Now, to me, this is what I'm all about. I'm about bringing the people I love, going on adventures, sprinkling in novelty and spontaneity and new places and exciting challenges or things we're gonna go do. And those are really the peaks of your life. These are like the moments that we look back on and get to be like, oh my God, that was amazing. And some people can think that those things are trivial, right? They're not as deep and maybe meaningful as doing something of service for the world. However, I will say, when you look back at the end of your life, our brains, the way they work, we tend to remember the 9s and 10s of life and the 1s and 2s. And what this part of your life is about, it's about creating more 9s and 10s moments. Where when you really create these peak moments, and I have a framework for this I call the 5 Ps of a peak moment, which is people, purpose, place, presence, and possibility. When you introduce all 5 of those, you don't just have a cool trip, you have an unforgettable experience that when you're 90 years old on your rocking chair, it's gonna be one of those things you're smiling about. It's paying that memory dividend. It's giving you that sense of fulfillment. And so this is how you tie all of it together. It's not that you just have to go chase peak experiences. It's that this is the cherry on top. This is like the chef's kiss of life. Whether that's gonna be doing a trip that is just, an adventure to go climb a mountain or do something like that, or go on a ski trip like I'm hosting, or maybe it's a trip that's gonna be more religious oriented for you because your family has never been to the Vatican. You're gonna take everyone to the Vatican and make that really special. Or maybe it's the baseball thing like I have with my dad, where that's our bridge to connection. And, the more we add into that experience, the more memories we get to make. Those peak travel experiences end up serving you so well in terms of looking back, feeling like, man, I just had a life really lived. It's what makes it all really worth it. And at the end of the day, I think that's what it's really about. I think the best way to live a life is to look at future you and have future you advise current you. So you go out to that 90-year-old rocking chair version of yourself and you look back at your life and you think, how would 9-year-old me say to live my life? He certainly wouldn't be saying, work harder, grind more, save more, don't have the trips, don't prioritize your family and friends, do things that drain you. He would be saying the exact opposite, right? He'd be like, trust yourself, trust your purpose, go build amazing relationships with the people you love, go on adventures, have peak experiences, live now because the time's gonna pass and you're gonna regret it if you don't. So again, for me, those 4 keys are really what I think unlock an amazingly rich life. It's those deep relationships. It's a business that feels like it's giving you life force. It's the ability to have the freedom to do what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want. And then it's that ability to have those peak travel experiences, those peak memories in life where you're gonna look back and be like, wow, those were some epic 9s and 10s. Now, if you combine all of that, you really live in a way that is something I call experiential wealth, which is you have a life rich in experiences, in moments, in memories, in fulfillment. And that is what I think will serve you towards the end of your life. Now, there's one last flavor here, which I didn't mention, which I think brings a tremendous amount of fulfillment and joy, and that is incredible levels of generosity. Now, it's one of the most fun and fulfilling things when you get to just give in a way that feels amazing. When it gets to feel playful and you're having fun with it, it fills me up so much to do that. And so sometimes when it comes to the trips and the experiences, that's one of the ways. Like right now, my fiance and I are going to get married out in Switzerland after this ski trip that I'm hosting. And one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to bring some of our friends out to help officiate the experience. So I did this as a surprise. My fiance didn't know until just the other day. We're about to leave in just a couple days here. And the reason I did it like this is because I knew that bringing in some spontaneity to the experience will make it more fun for her, but also bringing in some of our best friends will enhance the experience. They'll build those rich relationships and those peak memories. But the way that I did it was also really interesting because, I've got a lot of credit card points because I optimize the right cards inside of my business and I'm able to use them effectively because that's what, I've been doing for the last 10 years and what our company does. So I called up my 2 friends, said, hey, long shot here, saying no is totally fine, but I'd love to fly you out business class, have you guys come out and officiate our wedding in Switzerland. What do you say? They were in the middle of a dinner and they said, we're in. I told my buddy, I said, don't you need to talk to your girlfriend about it? He goes, no, we're in. And they're both just like 10 out of 10 excited, so pumped. And so now that's an experience that we get to go have together. But it kind of started with a sense of generosity, like flying your friends on a trip across the world. Like a lot of people are like, oh, they should pay for it. But in my book, I'm like, no, I want the fun. I want the experiential wealth. I want the opportunity to share this with them. And I want to do it in a way that feels so generous because it feels so giving and it feels amazing. And every time I swear that I make a super generous move like that, life just opens up for me. And so it's a fun way to play the game here. And the more I tap into those other 4 keys, the more generous I want to be, the more people I want to invite into the experiences with me. So with that, I just want to leave you with a question for you to define, because this is my definition of a really rich, well-lived life. So the question I want to pose to you is, what is your definition of a really rich life? What is your definition of a life fully well lived? I think the most important thing is that we all individually come up with what that's going to look like for us. My blueprint is mine. You're welcome to borrow it if you want to use those steps and philosophies. I think they'll serve you well, but maybe you have your own version. So I encourage you to go think about that as you're on your adventures, and wishing you the best of luck. I'll see you in the next video.